Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, which is using GDP to compare economies. And in this short video, we'll be talking more specifically about nominal GDP, real GDP, GDP deflator, and the inflation rate. Here, starting off, we are going to be discussing the different comparisons, starting with the nominal GDP. So nominal GDP is the goods and services valued at the current year's prices. And to calculate the value of the nominal GDP, you simply multiply the quantity of each good produced in a given year by the price of that same year. Let's work this example out together. So for example, suppose that a tiny economy produces only 3 goods, and the quantities produced in 2021 and the prices of the 3 goods in 2021 are listed in the table below. In this economy, we only produce apples, books, and shoes. In 2021, there were 10 apples produced, 20 books produced, and 15 shoes produced. And apples were produced at $1, books were produced at $1.50, and shoes produced at $2. Now, to calculate the nominal GDP for the economy for 2021, you need to multiply the quantity times the price for the same year. Meaning for this year, 2021, you would multiply the 10 apples by the $1 price, and the 20 books by the $1.50 price, and the 15 shoes by the $2 price. Shown at the bottom is the work, which would total up to the nominal GDP of 2021 totaling $70. Now let's look at the nominal GDP of the United States during the years 2015 and 2019. In 2015, the United States GDP totaled to $18.22 trillion, whereas in 2019, the total of the United States nominal GDP was $21.43 trillion. The question that we want to answer is whether we can make a conclusion that states 2019 more goods and services were produced than in 2015. When it comes to nominal GDP, there are 2 factors, quantity and price. That being said, the short answer is no. You cannot draw that conclusion. There are more factors that can affect the economy's production than only goods and services. You also have to account for the change in price that can be formed by inflation or deflation of the economy. We need to know how much of the growth is attributed to each factor to be able to determine how it is affected. To understand if the more goods and services were produced in 2019 compared to 2015, you need to know how much of the growth between the 2 years is attributed to the change in the quantity. That is where another comparison other than nominal GDP comes in. Now we focus more on real GDP, which helps to see how much growth is attributed to the change in quantity. When it comes to real GDP, it cannot be calculated without first choosing a base year. To calculate the value of real GDP, you simply multiply the quantity of each good produced in a given year by the price of its base year. So to rework the example from beforehand, we have apples, books, and shoes with the same quantity as the previous example. But instead of using the 2021 prices, we are now going to use the 2019 prices. So this time we multiply the quantity from 2021 by the 2019 price. And the same goes for books and shoes. We multiply both by the quantity or by the price, of the base year. And at the bottom, you can see I've already worked it out. So we have 10 times 75 cents, 20 times $1, and 15 times $1.50, which totals out to be $50, which is the economy's real GDP, which is less than the nominal GDP, which we originally calculated to be $70. Based on the nominal and real GDPs, we are also able to calculate a price index called the GDP deflator, which helps track overall change in price. The GDP deflator is a measure of the overall change in prices in the economy using the ratio between real and nominal GDP. Here you can see the formula which shows the GDP deflator is equal to the nominal GDP divided by the real GDP multiplied by 100. GDP is measured in percentage of increase and decrease. Let us work on calculating a GDP deflator through an example. So in 2019, let's say that the real GDP was $22.15 trillion and the nominal GDP in 2019 was $27.34 trillion. To calculate the GDP deflator, we would simply put the nominal and divide it by the real GDP and then multiply it by 100 to get that percentage value. So for this particular example, we would divide 27.34 by 22.15 and then multiply that by 100 to get the deflator to be 123.43%. Similarly, we can calculate the measure of inflation using the deflator that describes how fast the overall prices of the economy are changing. The inflation rate is equal to the current deflator minus the previous deflator, divided by the previous deflator again, and then multiplied by that 100 to get it back into percentage points. Let's try and use it in an example. So we are given the GDP deflators of 2018 and 2019. To calculate it, we would simply subtract 121.68 from 123.45 and then divide by the previous year again, which would be 121.68, and then multiply by 100 to get it in percent, meaning the inflation rate between 2018 and 2019 was 1.45%. Here are a few points to know about nominal and real GDP that you've learned from this previous lesson. If prices have not changed, then the nominal and the real GDP are equal for each year. An increase in the nominal GDP can be caused by inflation, by increase of output, or the combination of both. An increase in real GDP can be caused only by an increase in output. If prices have increased and production has not changed, nominal GDP will increase, but real GDP will not change. And lastly, if both quantities and prices have increased, then nominal GDP increases more than the real GDP.